the odd one out. You look at the remaining statements and make a parajumble out of it, and then you mark that particular input. So make sure you read the instructions correctly. So just because there is an odd one out and under the time pressure, you might not read the instructions very well, and therefore you might make a mistake in the input. So that's one small input. This is not really a strategy. This is basically about being correct in your attentiveness in terms of reading the instructions carefully. CAT is an examination which plays not only with novelty of a question or a difficulty of a question, but also tries to play around with which ones are you solving. Like in reading comprehension past so many years and in aimcat test series, you see those types of questions. Which of the following does the author agree with the most except? So therefore, the instruction is very important. So it's not just important that we have comprehended the passage. We must also understand what exactly is the objective of the question in terms of what the examiner wants us to do. So that was one particular thing that this is there. Second is that parajumble questions are back. So this has been a staple variety. So parajumbles training has been a standard feature across the training throughout the year and in the aimcat mock series also. So this would not be a surprise. So this is something which is not really a surprise, but just in terms of comparison of last year's pattern to this year's pattern, parajumble questions are back. Now in quant, what we are understanding from the assessment and everything, there is a shade easier calculation level logic that we are getting. So calculation is not easier, calculation is lengthy, but the level of difficulty is there. So a shade easier than last year, just a little easier. So which would mean that in the question selection and scanning kind of a thing, while most of us from a strategy point of view, in the quant section especially, we look at the new question coming on the screen, we immediately look at the logic and the nature of familiarity. It's a time speed distance question, it's a triangle question, it's a geometry question where a perpendicular is dropped and right angle triangle is seen. So we immediately jump on it because we have the required knowledge for it. But it is not just about the doability of the question, it is also about the amount of time that it will take in the calculation to eventually solve that question. So be careful in the strategy aspect in terms of which questions, how do you scan, how do you select, because most of the questions for a well prepared student, as we are getting the feedback about slot 1, are doable. So you might discover that you literally go through the quant section screen by screen, click by click, and you will actually find 8 out of 10 doable in the first 10 clicks, or 12 out of the first 15 clicks doable. But the time consumption of those 12 questions in quant might really be excessive, whereas there might be some 5-6 questions towards the end of the section which also are doable, but the time consumption and calculation might be smaller for you. And therefore, given this perspective, assess the doability of the question not purely from the point of view of logic, but also keep in mind how lengthy are the calculations going to be, how complicated, how many steps are there. For example, I can give you a very easy time speed distance question in just 2 steps of calculations, you can do it. But it might be a question where a man goes up on an escalator and comes down from an escalator, and there are multiple calculations involved. So even though you are conceptually clear, but it will be a lengthy question that way. So that was one particular point that we wanted to point out here, which was that they were lengthy. So therefore, from a strategy point of view, it is not just about the doability factor, but also the lengthiness of the overall process. On DILR, the whole mix was on expected lines, expected from last year's point of view. 2 years ago, like we said in the couple of videos ago today, when we went live on YouTube, we saw the difficulty levels 2 years ago. But last year, it became decidedly doable. And then we did something like this also. So this is what we wanted to say. So make sure your scanning assessment is correct. Verbal RC, read the instructions very carefully, especially in the verbal questions like we saw in slot 1 because of the instructions of the odd one out questions. Mostly the RC comprehension challenge has not been very high. So if the same expected lines happens, and this is something we recommend you during our aimcat analysis videos also, scan couple of lines from couple of paragraphs in the RC passages so that you are correct in your assessment of which RC to maybe postpone in your reading or attempt or not attempt. Like one RC was reported as a moderate to difficult, but the other RCs were easy to moderate in terms of the comprehension ability. So those standard tips still stay. Reading the question instructions, like I said, for verbal ability. And last of all, in the quant sections, like we explained 5 minutes back, it's not just about the logical doability of the question, it is also about the time consumption that the particular question takes. So I'm told that in the very beginning of this particular strategy discussion, there was some audio delay or audio loss. So I'll take you through the first part of my talk where we talked about this particular variety. So in terms of the paper pattern, there are no clear surprises. In fact, those of you who have tracked past couple of years CAT analysis on the Time website, you already know that these varieties of sectional distributions exist in the CAT examination. So standard 22 questions in the quant section and the DILR, and 24 questions in the verbal and RC part. Typical verbal is a split. So in terms of the pattern, in terms of the number of questions coming from each area, there is no major surprise. The only difference was that in verbal ability part, parajumbles made a comeback, and instead of unequal distribution, which was seen in last year's CAT, in the slot 1 and also in slot 2 and slot 3. But this year in slot 1, at least we know for sure that there were 2 verbal ability questions from each variety, and therefore 2 4s are 8, unlike last year, which was 3, 3 and 2. Rest, I think we have already covered in terms of strategy tips. So you have to make sure that if these things are the ones that you experience in the upcoming slot 2 and slot 3, these are the learnings you can derive from slot 1. And here's wishing you all the best. Keep looking forward to the things that we have out here. I am told that we have certain videos coming in from people coming out of the slot 1 hall, and we have collected some of these snippets, and we'll try and share it with you very shortly. Can we please have them on the screen now?
I am Ravi. माइक लगा दीजिए यहाँ पे। ओके तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आपका जो एजुकेशन बैकग्राउंड है वो क्या है बेटा?
मैं एजुकेशन बैकग्राउंड मेरा साइंस है।
साइंस का है।
जी सर।
आपका जो आज कैट एग्जाम हुआ है उसमें आपका सबसे स्ट्रॉन्ग सेक्शन क्या था, आपने उसको कैसे किया?
मैं वीए था। वीए का जो वीए की जो मेरे पास टेक्निक थी पावर ऑफ 6 वगैरह, उनसे मेरा बहुत अच्छा हुआ था।
पावर ऑफ 6 क्या है बताएंगे जरा? क्या
पावर ऑफ 6 मतलब जैसे अपन पैराग्राफ को कैसे समझ सकते हो कि बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग उसको कैसे जल्दी स्किम कर सकते हो उससे, तो मेरा वीए सेक्शन बहुत अच्छा गया। लाइक अप्रोक्सीमेटली के 24 क्वेश्चन में से मैंने 18 करे हैं, उसमें अप्रोक्स 15 करे।
बहुत ही बड़ा, बहुत अच्छी बात है, दैट्स ग्रेट। और ओवरऑल कैट कैसा रहा आपका?
ओवरऑल कैट गुड था, बट डीएलआर थोड़ा मेरा वो है हो गया, डीएलआर थोड़ा मुश्किल आया था।
ओके, एंड क्या
एक्सपेक्टेशन मेरे है 95
की रहेगी। एंड ओवरऑल तो एग्जाम का जो आपका एक्सपीरियंस था सेंटर था वो कैसा?
This is a snippet from Gwalior
वेरी गुड सर
in Madhya Pradesh.
बहुत अच्छी बात है, दैट्स ग्रेट। और ओवरऑल कैट कैसा रहा आपका?
ओवरऑल कैट गुड था, बट डीएलआर
Do we have any other snippet coming up? So that will be all right now. So head back to our website and try and see all these details that we have coming up for you. And then percentile estimator, first cut analysis. This is already done. Go and take this particular thing. This is going to be of tremendous benefit for you, and await the detailed analysis which is going to come your way shortly. Wish you all the best for the upcoming students who are watching this for slot 2 and slot 3. कितने मिनट का